When we look at the 2006 water issue, I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is that prior to that date, we were already beginning discussions on the infrastructure needs within San Angelo. What the 2006 event did was solidify that we needed to move very quickly in terms of addressing these issues. And so what I try to do is bring staff together and say, you know, we've been working on this situation, and now we need to ramp the pace up significantly on it, create this capital improvement program, look at funding sources, create funding for new water lines and wastewater lines and streets, because what we now know is we don't have the luxury of time to deal with this issue. This could happen again, and we need to start working on it now so that every project we complete starts reducing the likelihood that something like this will occur again. And so really what it was is just driving the pace on something that we've already started, actually increasing the pace dramatically so we could get something going and have something in play to deal with the issue. And I think that was just a product of the work that all the staff did, in the sense that all I had to do was just say we need to pick it up, and everything was already in play to do it. So that was really something that was a product of what they were doing all along. Well, I think the good thing about the council in this is when we started talking about the issues prior to December of 2006, they already realized the severity of the issue. What a lot of people forget is that we were already having issues prior to that. This really just solidified the fact that we need to do something, and we need to do it now. And so the council fully understood the consequences and what we had to do. Therefore, it was not a question of why do we need to do this. It was what do we need to do, how do we need to do it, and can we do it as fast as possible. And so they really supported us as we were developing those programs, which today we can see the benefit of it. What a lot of folks don't realize is that we had a fairly significant break just off of the water treatment plant. While we may have lost pressure to areas of town for a short period of time, it wasn't as severe as it was in 2006. Had we not have made the improvements that we made to date, it probably could have been more severe than 2006. And so we're already seeing those tangible results as a product of the work that's been implemented. So it's really just been council understanding the situation, really being willing to dig in and deal with the situation, and then providing the oversight on a regular basis to make sure that we're doing what we told the citizens we were going to do. When we look in terms of our capital improvement plan and specifically look at the infrastructure issues, there's a lot of work that really remains ahead of the city of San Angelo. While we've replaced one major water transmission line and one major wastewater line, we still have others that we need to go in and replace. What we're doing now, though, is we're setting valves in those lines to make sure if something occurs, we can shut those valves, but we still have a significant number of valves to put in place to deal with those issues. And just because we've made progress over 2 years, it doesn't mean that we're close to it. I mean, this is a work in progress, because when you look at the fact that we have infrastructure that's 50 plus years old, and infrastructure that was put in 30 years ago with very little maintenance, all of those things come into play. And this is really going to have to be a perpetual program for the city, because the minute you put something in the ground, or it's an elevated water tank, or it's a street, is the minute that clock starts ticking on the lifespan of that product. And the important part is to catch up on the infrastructure issues, build in the operations and maintenance components so you can extend the life expectancy of these assets as far as you can, but you have to prepare to replace them, because nothing's going to last forever. And what's really helped is now we have shifted from being in a reactive stance to developing these programs and implementing it, to now we are starting to shift into that proactive position where we are looking in the future and how we can develop plans to make sure that this capital improvement plan and our O&M components continue into the future and really extend the life expectancy of these assets. When you look at economic development, the obvious question is, well, where should the city be in this process? I think it also ties back into our responsibility to the citizens. When we vote on a half-cent sales tax, the citizens are placing their trust in the council to make sure that those funds are expended appropriately. And so ultimately, like any other funding source that we have in the organization, the City Council has ultimate oversight of that funding source. And so from that perspective, there is an ongoing system to where they have to vote on different economic development issues and always be ready to respond to citizen requests to say, yes, we are doing what we told you. And so that's really the situation from the 30,000 foot perspective. When you look at it in terms of what involvement does the city have, economic development is not solely about incentives. When you look at the successes that we've had over the last year, and specifically Marderfer and Glazer, one of the largest components of it was a tax abatement, which has nothing to do with the economic development sales tax. And that's really the situation where the city comes in, because the finance director will sit down and work with the numbers, and I'll look at them, and we determine if we provide this abatement, which ultimately takes away from the property tax revenues that we will receive. How does that benefit the community in terms of the number of jobs it creates, and ultimately what is that return on investment going to be? And so there are essentially two roads that run parallel to each other when you look at the sales tax financials that we receive and the incentives that we provide and the abatements that we provide through our property tax revenues. The advantage of that is that it's after the fact. And so we're not losing money that we're already collecting. We're essentially deferring that revenue source to the future to ensure that we have jobs. Then we also work with them in terms of providing financial oversight assistance, legal assistance, and really working through the daily operations. And then beyond that, the role is really identified by COSA-DC and the City Council in terms of how involved we are as city management staff and the rest of the organization. One of the questions that I receive all the time is, why can't we use sales tax dollars to assist with some of our infrastructure needs or operational needs? And I think we have to go back to that concept of accountability to the citizens. When the sales tax package was presented to the citizens in the election, we identified very specific projects that we were going to undertake, in addition to economic development and long-term water supply and a small operational component and low-income housing. We have to make sure that those activities that we've presented in that ballot are carried out. Beyond that, you then have to look that the rest of it really falls into economic development. And so we are limited into how we can spend that money. But more specifically, it is making sure we complete what we're telling the citizens we're going to undertake. And so we just can't say, we're not going to do this river project and we're going to use those funds for street improvements. We can't do that. We have to finish that. We have to create that river project. And so a lot of people don't realize that is a restricted revenue source for us, in the sense that it has to meet the definition that's established via state law.